Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Amazing guest today. This Navy veteran is a facilitator at our upcoming RE Bar Camp, One Coast here in St. Augustine. He's a team lead with Real Broker LLC out in Freeport, Florida. He has been in the industry for over a decade where he's consistently been a top producer. He's a mentor to other agents and believes real estate goes beyond just the transaction. He leads the charge at the Gonzalez Group. Let's welcome Rick Gonzalez to the show. Rick, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Tracy. Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you coming on today and get everyone. It's going to be at the RE Bar Camp. Get a little bit about you and what's going on out in your neck of the woods, out in the Panhandle there, and your ideology and philosophy in real estate. And I always think there's someone out there listening that's going to connect to your story. Maybe they're another veteran, whatever it may be, and say, "Hey, I got to meet Rick on the 26th," and we're walking in the hallways and so forth. So let's kick it off. I always like to kick off every show. Where are you from, Rick?
Oh, well, that's a complicated question. I was an Air Force brat. My dad did 24 years in the Air Force. And so I was actually born in Holland, but then raised mostly in the UK. And then I moved here when I was 15. My mom is British. My dad is from Puerto Rico. So we used to say that I'm Anglo-Rican. My father's family is Puerto Rican via New York. So I saw family in New York. So it's kind of a complicated blend of a few different things. But to say where I'm from, I guess now I've been in Florida more than any other place. So I guess right. I'm technically a Floridian now. So, but that's kind of where I hail from all over.
It's an interesting perspective though. I went over to Europe at Thanksgiving for a time and we bounced around a couple different countries, not living there for 15 years. How does that give you kind of a different perspective? Because I'm a real believer that a lot of Americans, we take a lot of things for granted, and sometimes you got to reach out and go to some of these other countries and realize how things are done elsewhere to kind of appreciate some of the things that we have here. And growing up there, what kind of perspective, can you share with us?
Well, not only was it a different country, but it was a completely different time, right? I mean, the freedoms that I had as a kid in England, unfortunately, I can't afford my kids the same kind of freedom. Mm-hmm. Because we lived right by the coast in the southeast of England, where the ferries are, mm-hmm. And so growing up over there, it was crazy because it was small town UK, military area, so lots of military GI families. But then there's so much history. Like I remember one of the biggest things I remember from moving over here at 15 and starting my junior year of high school here was that a lot of the things that you see in the history books, when you grow up in Europe, like you just go there. Right. So we would go to Stonehenge, or we would go and see the Viking ships. And so a lot of that was just coming over here. I almost felt bad for the kids because the history here is so new compared to history in Europe.
Yeah.
But I was very excited to be here. No uniforms. I was used to dressing like Harry Potter, going to school, shirt, tie, blazer, the whole thing. Right. And coming here, jeans, t-shirts, girls by the beach. It was a different lifestyle. So I was excited.
Excellent. So you end up, when you come back to the States, where do you end up graduating from high school?
Here in the Panhandle from Choctaw High School.
Okay. And then you end up going to JU. What brought you there?
Yeah, well, the Navy did. So after high school, I went straight into the Navy. I was neither prepared nor did I have any desire to go to college. I was done. I was like, that's enough schooling for me. I'm just going to go straight in the military. And then when I was stationed out in California with the Navy, I ran into Lieutenant Commander. I remember him distinctly because he had such an impression. Lieutenant Commander Raul Castañeda, and he was, because of my background, my heritage being Hispanic. Mm-hmm. There was a program back then called Boost, which was the Broadened Opportunity for Officer Selection and Training Program, and the intent of that program was to get more minorities into the officer ranks. Right. And so he said, hey, look, you're a squared away sailor. You should probably put in for the program. I never heard of it, didn't know what it was about, but he encouraged me. I had just won Sailor of the Quarter the quarter before, submitted my package and got it. I think there was 6,000 people who applied, and they only selected, I think, 100. And there was actually 2 of us from the same base that got selected. So that took us out to Newport, Rhode Island for a college prep class. And then while we were there, again, I'd only been in Florida for a couple of years. So even though my family was here, this area of the Panhandle is not near any major colleges that have ROTC programs. So I couldn't come home to go to college. And but I was trying to stay somewhere close by. And a buddy of mine was going to JU, and figured out Jacksonville wasn't too far from the Panhandle. So I said, okay, JU it is. So not really by design, just kind of luckily ran into somebody that knew more than I did, and it was close enough. So I selected JU.
Excellent. Excellent. So I'd say I had in my questions JU and then the Navy. It was actually the Navy, then JU. But so how many years did you end up serving? I imagine this program extended your commitment.
No, I did not. I did not complete the program. And so I actually only ended up doing less than 6 years total, if you look at my my counter. And some of that was reserve time because of the officer program. So yeah, no, did not complete the program, and then stayed in Jacksonville after JU, and went through some tough times before I landed here and back in the Panhandle and got into real estate.
So so that's it. How do you, when does real estate come across in front of you? When do you get a sense that, hey, I might want to do this as a career? That's always the best question.
Never until So long story short, so I'm in Jacksonville. My buddy, my best friend, Rob, who was the one who was going to JU and dragged me to Jacksonville with him. We became best friends, roommates. Rick and Rob were tied at the hip. He ended up graduating, went to flight school, was a pilot of SH-60s. And back in 2005, his helicopter crashed and he was killed off the coast of North Carolina. And that was the first of a couple of just bad events that sent me in a weird place. So I spent a good amount of time, I guess lost, I guess you would say. And so I did door-to-door sales for a company called Sidcor. Found them in Jacksonville. They took me to Atlanta and then Boston and then Nashville and then back to Atlanta. It was maybe like a 2-year stretch. And by then I'd kind of worked through the grieving and the emotional process and was kind of ready to come home. So I called my dad and came back here to the Panhandle where he lived. Right. Got a job working on the beach as a property manager for short-term rentals. And this was 2009-ish, 2008, 2009. So, we all know 2008, it was a weird time. And then just as things were starting to go well as a short-term rental manager, the BP oil spill happened. And so even though it didn't directly affect our beaches, it impacted the business enough where I was a new enough manager where I was the first one laid off.
Right.
So just as I was getting my footing again, I was laid off because of the oil spill. And my office down here on Scenic Highway 30A had both rental management and real estate in it. And, I'd seen the real estate guys, but the whole 100% commission thing, I was like, nope, not going to do that. That sucks. And so as I'm walking out with my box, the real estate manager, she gives me a hug. She says, hey, I think it's, kind of crappy what's happening to you. If you ever want to get into real estate, give me a call. I said, yep, thanks. Gave her a hug and never thought about it again.
Right.
6 months later, I think, still looking for a job and burning through the BP money that they gave me. My wife was giving me some of those looks like, you're going to get a job, right? And there was, the market was still struggling and nobody was really hiring for anything. So I was waiting tables and I said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to call Mary Lou and see what I got to do for this real estate thing. And, so she kind of became a mentor for me and walked me through how to get my license, what to do. I hung my license with her for a little while. And And that started me on a very long track into real estate. It was still 4 or 5 years until I really consider myself successful. The first few years were a real struggle.
Right. So I'm just trying to picture that time. You have the financial collapse, construction stops. Obviously, we know in that area there's a lot of investment property, the Airbnb type stuff going on, short-term rentals. And then you put the oil spill on top of it, and everybody just needs to know it's the Gulf of Mexico, so they're not going to any beach all along the Panhandle, whether it was affected or not.
Yeah. And I would go down to the
going
beach and take pictures. Like I would go down there and take pictures and send them to guests and say, hey, there's no oil on our beach. We're fine.
Right.
And people were still canceling reservations. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I blame the media 100% on that one.
Yeah. You know, people's perception was reality, and goes on. So yeah, I mean, starting your business right there. But was there any talk, or, you know, I think we're going through this experience right now, not as drastic as it was in '08, but like, is this going to turn around? Or how's this ever going to, you know, go back to appreciating again? You know, that whole fear and you know, looking at that opportunity, you know, the oil spill scaring people away, going, okay, if I get into real estate now, as soon as this oil stuff is cleared up, you know, it's going to, the Pandora's box is going to open, and the gate's going to open again, and everyone's going to be running down here wanting to buy investment condos and houses on the beach and so forth. Was that any chat that was being talked about, or you just kind of just stuck with it, put your nose to the ground, and things just started to happen?
Yeah, well, you know, Tracy, I kind of consider myself fortunate because I had nothing to compare it against, right? Mm-hmm. Like I wasn't like a lot of the agents now got into real estate in what I call the unicorn market, right? Where you think of listing a property and it sells for over what you think you might list it for. So they got used to that easy market very quickly. And then this hit and they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got in when everyone was like, what are you doing? Like, now is not a good time to get into real estate. So I didn't know how good it could be or how good it was going to become. I just knew what it was. I knew it was a struggle and a grind, and I knew I could sell one here and one there, and I could pay some bills. And it's why I waited tables at night and did real estate in the day for the first few years. But I thought that was normal. I just thought that everything I knew about real estate was a bunch of BS. And I thought that normal realtors had second jobs and struggled, and it wasn't as glamorous as I thought. So for me, there was no talk of, you know, hey, it's going to be great soon. I just thought as the years went by and I got better, that I would sell more houses, and I would get better, and then I would sell more houses and progress up like you do in a normal job, because that was my experience before this.
Right.
So yeah, I find myself feeling very lucky to go through that, because I think some of the people now are a little spoiled, and now they don't know what to do.
So you obviously came in, you were working real estate full time, waiting some tables at night to make things connect here. But you and your wife had the faith, or, I mean, because that's always a balance there. And I don't think I've ever asked this question on the show. But, you know, your wife was giving you some heat to get a job. You got the real estate. Did she accept that, even though stuff wasn't coming in? And you, like you said, you stuck with it for 4 or 5 years before things really started to happen for you.
Yeah, well, you know, luckily in my college time in Jacksonville, I waited tables and bartended, and so that was always an easy kind of a filler for me. I knew I could go get a job at a restaurant around here and make $100 a day and pay the bills. So I wasn't too worried about the money. That was the fill in the gap on the financial side was easy. The stress for us was I didn't want to be in restaurants like as a job. That's not what I wanted. And so I needed to know that real estate was eventually going to be a career that could not only support my portion of the bills, but eventually support the entire family, where my wife would have the option not to work. And so, you know, I'd like to say it was faith. But yeah, you know, I think the thing is, you know, she had a good salary job at the beach. She had benefits, so we were lucky in that aspect. I just had to make enough to, you know, like I said, to top off the accounts. And, you know, the goal was always to be Like back then I remember like, oh, if I could make six figures, like everything would be better.
Right.
Um, and, and it was elusive. I remember the first year I made like $60,000 and I was just barely making more than my wife. And I was like, oh, okay, now I'm legit. Like now I'm making more than she is.
Right.
And then of course then of course she got a raise the very next year. But it was one of those things where, we just, here in the Panhandle, there's not a lot of options. We joke and say that there's the 3 R's. There's resorts, there's real estate, and then there's like retail, and then the military on top of that. But if you're not doing resorts, real estate, or retail, like there's nothing here. There's no big business or industry. You can't go downtown Destin into one of the high rises and get a corporate job. So there's not much opportunity to make a six-figure salary. Everyone who does make good money is in some kind of sales, which I didn't have a lot of experience with. So we just knew that there weren't many other options. So we just kind of stuck with it for lack of options.
In your growth period, there's one thing I think is very important. And I think, you having a team and you've changed brokerages and you've worked for you've been under some of the biggest names in real estate out there a little bit. Tell us a little bit, that you've experienced from the standpoint of finding the right broker for you. Because, as I speak to many agents, especially some of the top people, top team leads and so forth, how it's important to find the broker that you kind of match a business ideology or just the way you kind of do things. And obviously a broker that's continuing to pour value into you, that you are growing at that brokerage. And some people walk in, obviously you didn't, you struggled for 4 or 5 years before things started to happen. So you kind of helped, that broker kind of had to probably, stick you a few times to say, hey, let's keep it going, keep moving forward, keep encouraging you. So what are some of the things you learned of the different brokers, the different leaders that you've experienced over the last, 12, 13 years in the business?
That's a great question. And what I will say is that the first 5 or 6 years I was struggling, I feel like I struggled a lot because there was no broker involvement. I feel like switching brokerages became another part-time job for me. I think now I'm at, let's say I started at a boutique one that has later sold to Berkshire Hathaway, but they were boutique when I started. Then I went to another boutique. Then that was when I was like, well, this isn't working and we're getting low on money. I should go to Keller Williams because that's the place where everyone goes to get trained on how to actually do real estate, right? So I went to Keller Williams. I was there for a year. Then I went to Remax, got on a team there. The team was the first time that I had any kind of a leadership or a mentor in real estate, as you said, poke me and be like, hey, let's go get on the phone or go do this. Or that team leader was the first time I had that. And that was 4 years in. The first few brokers, very little involvement, very little interaction, hardly ever saw him or heard from him. So then I left Remax and went back to a boutique to be on a team, but more as an office personnel type. I guess he thought I was old and knew a little bit, so I could maybe wrangle the young kids. And it was an opportunity because, again, sales weren't happening. It was another opportunity for me to earn some salary plus a commission. So it gave me that comfort. So I did that for 4 years. And then when I left that position, that's when I went to my first 100% brokerage because I thought these guys are taking half of my money. Now I know what I'm doing. Now I'm going to go 100% brokerage. I'm going to make all of my money and keep it all to myself. And that was a nightmare. I was there for 3 months and I was like, yep, no, this is not for me. Because it was complete opposite end of the spectrum. You go from having so much oversight, so much support, so much help and giving up 50% for that I went there and it was just an empty office. There was nobody. It was like you were completely on an island. So that was when, I apologize. So that was when I went to EXP, which at the time was almost brand new. I think there was less than 2,000 agents when I joined. And I joined them. This is where people may laugh at me. The reason I joined EXP is not for any of the stuff that people may be joining for now. I joined simply because at the time you got Commissions Inc. CRM for free. And me being a solo agent, just coming from 100% brokerage where I didn't have a CRM, having a CRM as powerful as Commission Inc. for free was enough to get me to switch brokerages and join EXP. So I did that for 4 years until I no longer felt comfortable and joined Real 3 years ago. So I've been at Real just over 3 years. To circle back to your initial question, as far as the leadership and the broker, here at Real, it's the first time that a lot of people that probably listen to you and follow you are Gary Vee aware, right? Mm-hmm. Gary Vee has always said that he doesn't bet on the horse, he bets on the jockey. And with Real, it was the same way. Good friend of mine, Tim Macy, made the switch from EXP to Real. And I knew he was dug in and well invested at EXP. So I knew it had to be a good move and at least worth me taking a look at. Right. And he introduced me to Tamir, who is the CEO of Real. And Tracy, I can't tell you, he's just a guy that really, truly makes you believe that he wakes up every morning trying to come up with ways to help you. Like that's his only purpose. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it is about him, but every conversation I've had with the guy, I just truly believe that his mission every day is to make realtors' lives better. And in the 3 years that I've poked at him and tested him and seen how he reacted to different things, these lawsuits and other brokerages having accusations made, like, hey, what would you do in this situation? Every time he's put feet to fire and been forced to answer a question, he's answered it almost perfectly, and then followed through with what he said. And that leadership has just made me feel like I'm definitely in the right place.
Someone coming into the business today, I'm sure, as all agents, you're at cocktail event or whatever with non-real estate agents. They're asking, hey, how's the real estate market? Should I become a realtor and so forth? What are some of the things that you think are important? I mean, because you it sounds like you've been very aware of your struggles. And I think a lot of people listening to what your story probably would have quit a long time ago. They probably would have quit easily in the first 5 years. But what's important? What are someone hasn't even taken the test yet or even started to study for it? What are some of the things that you're telling them up front? Hey, you need to know this about real estate. And, here's a couple of things that I recommend, because I really found that really finding that broker or a mentor or something like that really has changed someone's learning curve and success curve tremendously.
Yeah, but I think I would start first at making sure they have a really high level of self-awareness, because the one thing that real estate does for you or does to you is it affords you almost an unlimited opportunity of different ways to do the business. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, that can cause that paralysis by analysis. It's right. Like you've got this team over here that's successful door knocking. You got this team who does cold calls. You got this team who does video and social and a podcast. And there's so many different ways you can be successful in real estate. And so the reason why I say they need to have a high level of self-awareness is because if you come in not knowing yourself and what you are comfortable doing, what you're good at, what you want to do, because remember, we all get into real estate for freedom, flexibility, and to live our lives the way we want to and make oodles of money. And then we join a team and they make you cold call and you hate your life and you quit. Right. So I think you got to come in from the beginning knowing, hey, look, I saw this guy, Rick, on social. He does a lot of videos. He does this, he does that. He seems like he's doing really well. Like, I want to do that. And so then if you identify that social or video or whatever is your thing, then what you said is 100% accurate. Then you look for that coach or that mentor, that team lead that is doing business the way you want to do business. And you say, hey, can I join your team? I want to do real estate the way you do. And then yes, having that leader, that coach, mentor, team leader, whatever, will definitely, shorten your learning curve by at least my 5 years. But I think I still see a lot of agents who get into the business and haven't put any thought into how they're going to do the business. They just get their license. And then they flounder for the first couple of years, going from coach to coach to coach or team to team to team. And they just look at the success. They don't look at how they're getting that success. And if it's not a match, then you're going to spend 6 months or a year with that team and you're going to say, oh, this sucks. It doesn't work. And you're going to go try something else.
Right.
So self-awareness first.
No, that's excellent. Neil Oates said, yeah, know thyself. That was actually his quote when I spoke to him the other day.
He's a smart guy.
And so in new agent listening to this, or maybe we cut it as a reel, really what you're saying, I mean, to do the due diligence, maybe while you're studying, to really go out and go grab a cup of coffee with a top, producer, a broker, whomever you can get that will come, because a lot of them will, obviously a lot of brokers know, if you're approved to take the test, or when you complete the test, you'll do it when you sign up for the state, you're already on somebody's list, so they're already calling you. So go and have coffee with numerous amount of people to find out, because I think you hit it spot on. There's so many ways to do this business, because in the end, at the bottom, which is one of the things that you put in there, the quote, or real estate goes beyond the transaction, and it's a relationship. If you want to continue to grow and make it a 20 or 30 year career, it's building those relationships and keeping this. How long did it take you to really come to that conclusion with all your trials and tribulations? Like, dude, the real trick to this thing is building a relationship with every single person that you talk to every day.
It was through trial and error, right? Like, I mean, I tried the cold call thing, hated that. The bad part for me is, if I don't like something, I can still usually work hard enough where I'm pretty good at it. Like, I've done door-to-door sales. I did collections at Citibank when I was in college. So I've done phone work. I've done door-to-door work. So I can be successful with it. The part for me was, again, I had this vision of how I wanted to live my life in real estate, like what being my own independent contractor was supposed to afford me, that lifestyle. And going door-to-door and cold calling was not it. So I think it was just trial and error, figuring out the things I didn't like to do. And then it was actually, I think, just because the technology came along at the right time. I started doing video when Facebook Live came out. So if you're bored enough one day, you can go back through my Facebook page and you can see my Facebook Lives. And I don't know, maybe 7-8 years ago is when it started. I used to do a daily Facebook Live show. I called it the Ricky G Show because I was a Gary Vee fan. I couldn't come up with anything better. I had a couple of buddies that were doing coffee chat shows. One was Rory Pitts. He's up in the Pacific Northwest. He had the caffeinated realtor. He would get on every morning and
I like that.
just drink. He would just drink coffee and just talk on Facebook Live. I had another guy down here that had coffee chat. And then I had, there was a guy in South Florida that was, his name was Joe. And so he had Cup of Joe. And so I was watching these guys every morning on Facebook, and I was like, who are these 200, 300, 400 people that are watching these guys drink coffee and just ramble on about nothing? And so Justin Lindsay, who did Coffee Chat, was here locally in my market. And so I reached out to him, and he actually had me on as a guest on his Coffee Chat show. And I was really amazed at how, kind of like just like what we're doing now, We were on Facebook. It was split screen, and he's interviewing me, and people were tuning in like we were on a regular TV show. And then when people saw it, they were like, "Oh, hey, I saw you on that show. That's so awesome. You're really doing big things now." And I was like, "No, I'm really not. It was just social media." But that was the first time that my brain started like, wait a minute, like this might be something. And so I started doing the video Facebook Live. I challenged myself to do my Ricky G show every morning. I used to joke that it was 8:30 ish. And I would just go live and just talk, and people just started showing up. And then when I missed a show because I slept in, I would get messages like, "Hey man, did I already miss the show? What time are you going live today?" And I was like, "Wait, like you're like waiting to watch it? Like what's going on here?" And so then I started getting, recognized from video, and it kind of just built upon that. And I said, okay, this social media thing is something. And while all of the coaches and team leaders here locally were like, stop wasting your time on social media. You need to start doing open houses and cold calling. Like that's what works. I just went against the grain, and, we talked briefly before we went live about Dustin. And that's when I met Dustin and Neil and Chelsea and all those guys from Snapchat. And that mastermind in Park City was the catalyst. Finding that group of people who were also having those same thoughts and conversations about, hey, social media is real. Like we can build a business online. Mm-hmm. Having that support group and being able to have those deeper conversations about it from a positive light, rather than me trying to defend myself here locally against the naysayers, that was the catalyst that gave me the confidence to say, this is how I'm going to do the business. So those 3 days in Park City were crucial. And that's why to this day, even though me and Brome are not at the same brokerage anymore, right, if he called me right now and said, "Hey, Rick, I need you," I would be on the first plane out there, because seriously, him inviting me out there for those 3 days changed the course of everything afterwards.
Wow, this is now the conversation is going to really get interesting, because you're in my lane now. This is what I'm talking about. Just talking about my podcast. I don't know if you know Travis Chappell. He's out there in Nevada, but he's the one I hired to coach me on, because I didn't even know what a podcast was. And my whole point was, hey, I'm in mortgages, and I want everybody in Jacksonville to know who I am. I want everyone in Northeast Florida to know who I am. And then also I truly enjoy having some of these top agents on and picking their brains, and it puts them on, just like you were being seen talking about industry, which you were probably already doing half the time anyway, to friends, family, or other people in the business. Now you're putting it on video and people are listening in. I had a good friend of mine, actually he's with Cross Country. We do a little thing called Mortgage Athlete. I just threw it together like, hey, all right, hey, Tom, sit down. You've been doing this 30 years. He's, very good with the lingo. And he was telling me yesterday that the salesperson at Mattress Firm they met, when he met him the first time, Tom gave him his business card. He went on YouTube and found all my YouTube videos. And the only thing Tom's on is LinkedIn. So he's watching our little Mortgage Athlete, 30-minute show, and picking up and learned all about Tom, watching all the different segments that we've done so far. Yeah. It's amazing. We don't know who's out there watching. And then the spillover is the amount of content that creates. We could sit here for an hour. I could easily, if I went through and dissected every statement that you've made, could easily pull out a dozen solid reels that would last the entire month of content and so forth. So one of the things we should do that, by the way, doing, which sounds like you were already doing it, type of thing, is I've started, instead of doing a full-blown podcast like this where I send it to Apple and Spotify and everything, I've actually just started going, hey, I've got one tomorrow, I think, or Tuesday and Wednesday next week, where I just get them streaming for 30 minutes and we do a market update. Hey, what are you doing for your business? Boom, boom, what's going on? What's the challenges you're having in your little section of Northeast Florida and that type of thing. And people are watching. It's grown, because the one thing I think people forget about social media, and you can probably attest to this, when you do bring on a guest, you now enter their social circle
Right.
in Facebook and so forth.
Yep. Yeah, no, the collaboration is one of the things I love about the business. Having agents all around the country and in Canada that I can, shoot a DM to, text, get on a Zoom, have a conversation with, that's invaluable. Again, locally, you get that competition, right? The guy down the street doesn't want to give me his secrets because I'm trying to steal his business.
Right.
But the guy on the West Coast is like, sure, here's my ad, here's the copy, here's what I did, here's how I did it. Just knock yourself out, take it and use it for your own.
Right.
And that's huge. It's why I love going to these bar camps, right? It's people that are not necessarily in my market, who are like-minded, willing to share and learn. And that's where the gold is. You just pick up that one thing. You're like, holy crap, I never thought about that. Like you talking just then, my wheels are turning. And I'm sitting here thinking like, man, you're right. Like I don't even need to do a podcast. Like I could just hop on a little 30-minute Zoom with random people and chop that up and have reels for days. Because you never know. It's hard to script the nugget, but when you get the conversation and you start going down those rabbit holes, that's when you're like, oh, that was genius. And so if you're recording, you just cut it out. Yeah, no. So I'm definitely stealing that. That was a genius idea.
Well, it's even gotten better now because I use Opus Pro. That is, I'm sure there's other companies out there
with the AI,
but I could take the 30-minute conversation, upload it to Opus Pro, and in 10 minutes, it might have anywhere from 25 to 30 reels. Now, not all of them are the quality I want to be, but they'll give you a title and everything, where when you upload it to TikTok or whatever, it'll load that title in there. It scores it on an SEO, so it always gives you the highest score first and then moves down. But you can go in there and tweak it and edit it a little bit, cut it off what kind of things that you want to do. If some of them are just so good that I just go, yep, upload, boom, there it is. Because Opus Pro is just an AI editor.
Well, and I'll say for the people listening, or for the people coming to bar camp next week, if you're bored, and if you promise to watch all of the whole video, go to my YouTube channel and watch a couple of videos, because they're nothing special. What I've learned quickly is that it does come down to the content. If you overproduce and worry too much about graphics and the flash, and you don't have enough meat, people will stop watching, and your videos will not do. It doesn't matter if you're paying $500 for some fancy editor, right. They will bomb. And you could do videos like I did, where I self-edited in iMovie with my phone. And as long as you're giving good value in the content, they'll do well. Now, if you can find a sweet spot where you've got good content and some good editing, you can do better. But that's my friction point right now, is finding a good editor that doesn't want to charge me an arm and a leg for a video.
Right. Right. Well, if you are editing yourself, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like podcasting. You've experienced that. You start off and you got a lot of ims and ahs and whatever. And if you're listening to yourself, you're like, but as you gradually do it enough times, and that editor, you use the editor enough times, you go, oh, I can do this and I can tweak it a little better. And then of course, with technology, these guys are constantly improving those apps too. And it just gradually grows better. You should see a progression, but you've got to start the journey. I think Mr. Beast, the big YouTuber, says it goes, go out and commit yourself to shooting 100 videos. And by the end of the 100 video, you're going to see a difference between 1 and 100 in your quality and what you're doing, but you've got to start the journey.
Yeah. I usually tell people, when people approach me and say, hey, if I want to start in video, where do you suggest I start? I always suggest either doing Facebook Lives or jumping on stories, because they're so easy to do. And most of the time, people's biggest friction point is just the simple part of seeing and hearing themselves on video. And you can do the lives and stories right from your phone with nothing. You don't even need a microphone. No editing, no nothing. And I think that's an easy way just to build the muscle of pulling your phone out and recording. And I think if you can maybe set a challenge of, 3 to 5 stories a day for 30 days, you're talking 150 stories. By the end of that month, you should be over your fear of being on camera. And now you can start, delving into some different projects. But short form video is so powerful now that I'm not going to say you don't need long form YouTube, because I think it's the best thing out there. Right. But I think you could be ahead of the curve doing just short term.
I was talking to George yesterday from Miami. He's all about video. He's going to be at the RE Bar Camp, and we were talking. He started his business, all about video. His listings, right? He was going to do. He basically said, "I'm going to do a movie on all my listings," because it was cutting edge back in before 2010. Right. And all these social media platforms. So, and we both agreed, and I think you would agree, social media is not saturated by any means. There's the amount of content that's absorbed every day. And we see everyone, no matter where they're at, they're sitting in their doctor's office, they're on the phone. They're sitting there waiting, whatever.
Every age group too, right?
They're looking at their phone, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many people out there absorbing it. So you're not saturating it. But how important is it to be in the video at some point, even if you're doing a house walkthrough, to be in front of the camera for a period of time, because you are building a relationship psychologically with the watchers. They're seeing you. They see what you look like. They see your mannerisms, your facial expressions, and so forth. And you actually, so when as I'm sure you've experienced being enough on the videos and so forth, people walk up to you and it's almost like you've known each other for a long time, because they've watched you so much on video, and it might be the first time you actually met face to face.
Yeah, it actually drives my wife crazy. We're at the point now where I shared, I think it was last month, we were at Publix grocery shopping, and guy turns down the cereal aisle and his eyes get all big, and he's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "My wife's not going to believe this." He's like, "You're that guy from YouTube." And so we're taking selfies in the cereal aisle in Publix. And my wife is like, "What is going on right now? Like this is getting out of control." But yeah, it does. I get, last week I was showing property to a client, a new construction, and the car drives by and the window comes down. They're like, "Hey, you're that guy from YouTube. We love your videos." And so, yes, it is 100%. It's not even important. It is an absolute must do. You have to be in front of the camera. If not, then you're probably doing a good job of promoting that house, but there's nothing to distinguish your video from the others. And I think the biggest example of that is, and of course, as soon as I go to say his name, I can't think of his name.
I'm just like that.
Tyler, my buddy Tyler up in Canada.
Right.
If you see the videos on TikTok, he's the kid with what I think is like the big Mormon hat on. And anybody on TikTok that's seen his videos knows exactly who I'm talking about, even if they don't know who Tyler is. It's Tyler Hassman. He's got an incredible story, and he's built an amazing business just on TikTok doing short form video tours. But the beginning of his video is always him in front of the house. "Hey, let's go see what you can get for $250 in Ontario." And then he walks into the house and does a speed ramp, quick 60-second tour. Right. And that's all he does. But now people are paying to fly him to California and Miami to video their $1 million homes, because his account gets millions of views, and he did it all with his phone. And
wow,
you can't see it. No, he did it all with his phone and a simple DJI Osmo gimbal, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. The brand, you are the brand. It's like the gentleman from California that has the realtor. He now wears the hat and he does the rap, right?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I can't think of it. I could picture his face. He's got glasses, but he hadn't sold any real estate, and now he was being brought to places to speak in front of large groups and so because he created the brand as the rapping realtor.
Yeah.
And that was his brand. Now, obviously, he has a skill that not in, he probably knew some guys that had some recording and made him sound really good and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
again, you being in front of the video, and it's a lot of them miss that because they're afraid to, but really you are building that relationship. Talking about the video in YouTube, because I'm big in YouTube, and obviously when I have agents on, I go through all their social media, and I find so many of them may have done a few videos a year or 2, 3 years ago, and then they just gave up. And I'm thinking when you were talking about people you run into, I had Austin Preck he's with EXP here in Jacksonville, and Austin has become a master of his community. And he says he's walking his dog with his wife in the community, and there'll be a neighbor across the street going, "Hey, Austin," because Austin does a video on that neighborhood every month, the market update, and he's the guy. And he's like, telling his wife, like, "I have no idea who that is." And because he's built that relationship as the guy.
Yeah.
We have all these people from outside of Florida looking to move here. Even at that video, YouTube to me is an endless library. If they just go in and plug in that neighborhood, I want to live in XYZ neighborhood. You have all these videos, whether you did them yesterday or 3 years ago, that are going to come up because of the name.
Yeah. Well, and that's the same thing I did. I live in a big playing community out here in Freeport, and I don't know what we're up to, like maybe 22 neighborhoods within the community. So 85+% of my business is right here in my own neighborhood.
Nice.
But it's because of that, right? It's because I have a local Facebook group for my city where I share and promote local businesses, and I interviewed the mayor and I interviewed local businesses, and I did the whole digital mayor thing that Gary Vee talked about. And then on YouTube, I did the same thing. I do the typical, nothing fancy, the pros and cons, the top 5 reasons, what you should know before you move. I do all the standard titles, just R&D, whatever the guy in the next city is doing, and just put your city in the title and record the video. It's really not hard. And those videos, again, were ones that I edited myself with iMovie. Did a really horrible job with the thumbnail. I've gone on to like YouTube channels, like with Christina Smallhorn and Malcolm, where they've critiqued my channel, and it has not gone well. But those videos have still gotten 3, 4, 5, 6,000 views, and I still get calls today.
Right. I
still get recognized from those today, because when you search moving to Freeport or living in Hammy Bay, I'm 5 of the top 10 videos. So yeah, it's not hard, but again, this is why the self-awareness comes into play, right? If I'm musical, then maybe the rapping realtor is a way to go. I'm not musical. I'm also not a theater guy. So I'm not going to go for, these big, overly excited. My buddy, Brad McCallum in Canada, he's like, you got to be like Brad times 300, because then on camera you look normal. If you're normal, you're going to look kind of subdued and lazy, and people are not going to be excited. I just don't do any of that. I'm just me, because I think it's really important when people watch the video and they hear the cadence of how you talk normally,
right?
And they see your mannerisms and they see what you wear. It's important that if someone's watching this video and then I go to bar camp, there's a really good chance you may see me in this red work hard, be kind shirt. And they're going to be like, you're exactly how you are on video.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, because I'm the same person.
Yep.
So you have to be cognizant of a few things, but if you want to go fancy, you can. Like I said, you're the guy in California, Brad McCallum, does very cinematic type property tours up there for his $1 million homes. You can definitely do that, and it works. Again, there's 10,000 different things you can do in real estate that will work if you do them consistently.
Would you recommend, especially obviously, the one challenge, the biggest challenge in trying to teach people social media stuff is, putting the camera on themselves, right? That eliminates a lot of your competition. So if you're willing to put the camera on yourself and start failing forward in the video production, in really like you've taken over your neighborhood, which sounds pretty large, so that's great. So 85% of that large neighborhood, you're seen as an expert on the video, even if it's just a 2 or 3,000 home community, to be that person that's seen as that thing, and just start moving forward with it as the first thing you do. Maybe you don't even choose your neighborhood because you're afraid your neighbors might say something. Choose a neighborhood maybe a mile away and start being the expert of that neighborhood, and then bring it to your neighborhood when you feel comfortable. But as something just really basic that can really get your business moving forward fairly quickly. I wouldn't say quickly, because my next question, this leading into it, when someone asks you, can you get business from social media? How do you answer that?
Well, yeah, obviously, yes, you can, because most of my business comes from social media. But like you said, it's not an overnight thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm not going to say you're silly if you don't. But what I'll tell you is I have friends who are Zillow agents, right? And they pay a ridiculous amount of money every month, and they get the leads and they sell them, and they make a lot of money, and they're happy. But the problem that they're running into is now Zillow is getting more expensive. And so now they're looking for an exit strategy from Zillow. And what I told them was like, well, if you would have been following up properly, like with a forever nurture campaign on all of your closed deals, you should have enough recurring business now that you shouldn't have to buy leads from Zillow.
Right.
Because a lot of my business is repeat and referral. And then you get new business from social media. So what I would say is, if you want new business, then you obviously paid leads or leads from your broker are the way to go. But if you start your social media and video today, it will start making you business sooner than if you wait. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's one of those things that it's definitely not overnight, because you have to saturate the market, and it takes time for you to do enough content and enough videos and be seen as the expert before people will start sending you business.
Right.
But again, you can learn from people like me and the others that have done it over the last 6, 7, 8 years, and take the shortcuts and know that, one post a day is absolutely not enough. There are plenty of people that I subscribe to and follow that post 15 times a day, and I might see 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. So if you think you're posting too much, you're going to turn people off, just stop. You're not that well followed that people are seeing you constantly. They're following all of these celebrities and businesses and all these other big names that they're going to see way before they see your stuff. So just keep creating. The amount of content you should be creating is staggering if you want to dominate a market. So don't think you're creating too much, because I guarantee you're not creating enough.
Talking about if you started with leads and you're building up, but obviously, I think any, some of these teams, they've got to, that do leads, they've got to help these agents graduate off of that eventually. Like you said, they built up enough past clients, they've got enough, supporters out there and so forth. But how video, if you could speak to how video keeps your friends, your family, and these past clients, keeps you top of mind and keeps reminding them every day, Rick's in real estate, Rick's in real estate, Rick's in real estate. And so when they think of real estate, they think of Rick.
Well, so again, I'm in a planned community, right? So there's still a lot of new construction that happens here. So if they go directly through the builder, then when they do sell in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they don't have a realtor, right? So that's a potential lead for me. And then I have all of these orphan buyers who buy, and then the realtors never call them again. That's another lead source for me, but I have to be in front of them. And so that's why it's just important. I dig on the suit wearing, Range Rover driving realtor all the time, because I'm not that guy. I'm a t-shirt and shorts guy.
I've noticed that in some of your videos, some of your YouTube videos. Yeah.
But the thing is this is part of the brand, right? And so I have way more work hard, be kind shirts than I probably should have in my wardrobe. but it just makes me easily identifiable, even from a distance. I was featured in a magazine this month. I had this same shirt on the cover. Whenever I have an opportunity, I try to wear this same kind of attire because it's part of the brand. It's the Nike swoosh, right? It's like, oh, there's that guy with the beard and the work hard, be kind shirt. That's the guy from YouTube. And even if they don't know that my name is Rick Gonzalez, they know who I am. And it's enough awareness that when someone says, hey, I think we're going to sell our house. Like, do you have a realtor you might recommend? Yeah, call that guy. He has a page out here. He's with the work hard, be kind thing. And there's enough people who know that they find me pretty easily. So I almost think it's not the teams and the brokers that should be trying to wean the agents off. I think it's the agents that should be trying to wean themselves off of the paid leads and start to build that database of fans for themselves, right? So that they can get that repeat and referral business for themselves without having to go back to the broker or the team lead and pay whatever the extra fee is for the team lead. And it's fun. I mean, I've sold $700,000 houses because I was in line at the food truck talking to people in line, had my shirt on, and 6 months later, they're like, hey, Rick, you remember us from the food truck? Hey, we're selling. Could you help us sell our house?
That's cool.
Yeah, of course I can. So it's one of those things that, when Gary Vee says, what's the ROI of your mom? Like, it's hard for me to say what the ROI is of my shirt because nobody says, hey, I saw you wearing that red shirt and I want you to be my realtor. But the consistency of showing up the same way. Remember Tyler with his big hat and me with my shirt and, whatever your shtick is, you could be the realtor who sells houses in heels or whatever your gimmick is, whatever thing helps you stand out. Just have that and then be consistent. Again, the consistency is the key. We've all heard that 100 times, but it's true.
Well, it's that thing like memorizing people's names. You may
I'm
not
terrible
even
at.
remember the name, but the shirt, or hey, it's the realtor in heels. I've got one here in town. She's the red heel realtor, and then there's another Maurice is the bearded realtor. I almost remember more by that than actually. I have to think about their name, but they see it, they go, oh yes, that's the I know that's the bearded realtor, and you can call him that, and he responds to it, right? So,
because it's fine, right? You don't care how they remember you as long as they remember you.
100%.
And it's it's just and I don't have it all figured out. Everything's not perfect. There are plenty of people who still message me saying, hey man, like we moved here 3 years ago and your videos really helped us decide to live here. And I'm like, then how come you didn't call me to be your realtor? Because not everybody does. But then I have to remind myself that the videos and the social media, them getting to know me before they meet me works both ways. Maybe they preferred someone older or younger or female or not bearded or whatever,
right?
But they still got value from the video. And I've had people who did not choose me who still refer me to other people.
Right. 100%.
So there's no downside to it, but you just have to be, I think you just have to be the person that says, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Social and video is my thing. And if you are, then shoot me a message. I'm happy to help.
I'd love to periodically, like I said, reach out to you maybe every few months and do a little 30-minute catch up, maybe with you on, hey, what's some latest things that you're seeing? Maybe obviously facts tell, stories sell, right? And telling some success stories of individuals, whether it's you or you're working with, because I imagine people come up to you all the time, asking for things. I think one of the simplest things in real estate, a lot of us have been told, whether it's on the mortgage side or the real estate side. I mean, what does it take for 30 minutes, or not even 30 minutes, take 15 minutes, stream live with a business owner in your community. Talk about what's going on, or hey, maybe there's some celebration going on or event or a new business opening. Everybody wants to know the local jargon or, water cooler talk and take 15 minutes a few times a week and talk to just different people in the community. of what's going on. Everyone wants to promote an event that they got going on, and some people are not very good at it. So if you reach out to them and help them promote that event by having them on your page for 15 minutes, you gain credibility. So
Yeah, I
what
agree.
is I'm going to finish with this. What is the message? Obviously I know you're coming in, you're going to have your notebook to steal some, which all agents should be coming to the RE bar camp with. I'm going to put both of us back on the screen here because my camera seems to be working. It's my camera on this end that keeps freezing. Everyone should have their notebook, but have some questions. If you've sat here and listened to Rick go on, hopefully you've written down 2 or 3 things like, hey, I want to meet Rick in the hallway and go one-on-one with him and ask him a few things that he's doing. Or if you are in one of the breakout sessions and Rick's there, to dig deeper into what we just talked about for the last hour of what Rick's doing and where he's seeing success as far as using the social media as a tool, small or large. Some people are going to take it to a whole nother level, but would you agree, don't measure yourself with what someone else is doing?
Oh yeah, no, that's another buddy of mine, Jesse Peters, up in Canada again. There's an event we go to every year called the Real Estate Video Blueprint in Houston, Texas, hosted by Katie Day. It's a great, fantastic event if you're thinking about getting into video. But he was a speaker a couple of years ago, and he said, "Don't judge your day 1 to my day, whatever 200." I mean, he's been doing videos for years. And it was so true, because we do that all the time, right? I'll see Tyler's video and he's getting 60,000 views in the first couple of hours. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm lucky if I get 600 views, like total.
Right.
So that must mean that I'm no good. So I should just stop. And the reality is, I always try to ground myself in, like, what kind of interaction do I need to run my business the way I want? Like, I only need 35, 40 deals a year to be making more than enough money to pay the bills and live comfortably, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 35, 40 deals a year doesn't mean I need 600,000 views on each video. For Rick to do his thing, 600 views is plenty. So I guess just have the right perspective on what you're trying to do. And yeah, if you want to have fun, like, go back and look at Gary Vee's first video. Go back and look at my first video. Go look at Mr. Beast's first video. They all were absolutely horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you have is the opportunity to learn from everyone that's gone before you. And your first video may be just a little bit better than mine. But then, like I said, your learning curve is going to shorten because you can learn from all of our mistakes. You can cut that learning curve way down, and you can hop, skip, and a jump so you can get better faster.
Right.
But you're still going to have to take the swings and the at-bats. You're still going to have the videos that fail. You're still going to have to deal with the trolls who, I had been in Freeport for a couple of months when I did my first, I used to call it the Freeport Insider. Mm-hmm. And the trolls, you're not even from Freeport. Who do you think you are being the Freeport Insider? You're always going to have to deal with those people, but it's engagement. I reply back, and I try to keep them talking as long as I can to juice the algorithm, Mm-hmm. So yeah, don't judge yourself against where we are now. Judge yourself against where we started and where you started. And I think you'll see quickly how you're probably going to kick all of our butts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, because I think you would agree. Everyone that's out there and is doing it is so welcome to share their failures with you. It's part of their, I can't think of the phrase I want to use, but the price they paid, right? We've walked uphill both ways in the snow to school, and they are willing to tell you, yeah, I did that and it didn't work, or hey, this equipment didn't work, or like I said. But I mean, these phones now, you can really do it with just your phone, and maybe you buy a stick or a stand or something.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, that Osmo, I think it's the DJI Osmo 6 I got from Amazon. I think it was like 60 or 80 bucks. And my phone, that's what if you see a video of me out and about, because what we're shooting this on right now is my fancy camera that I now use just as my webcam. Like, I have like a $2,000 webcam because it's so complicated. When I would take it out into the field to shoot neighborhood videos, I couldn't figure the thing out.
Right.
I mean, I'd come home after a day of shooting and it was all the colors. It was all whitewashed out. It was blurry. It was terrible. It was a day wasted because I couldn't figure it out. So I just went back to using my phone. So now I have this fancy camera on this fancy tripod sitting in my office that just makes my Zoom calls look pretty.
And the reality, most of these people are looking on a phone. I was, just filming my son's basketball game, and the camera can do 4K. And I'm talking to the videographer. He's like, no one's watching in 4K.
Right.
That's not going to help you. Cut it down to 1080. These phones, they're watching them on the phones. The cameras on the phones.
And the sound is so much more important than the video. I mean, if you just have decent, you can shoot everything in 1080. Yep. As long as you have decent audio, where you're not hearing the wind and it's not cutting out, it's not like you're in a can, and you can do that pretty easy.
Type thing to to actually, and they're not that expensive. For less than $100, you can get a decent mic. I know I'm using Rodecaster's pod mic. They actually have these now with a USB, so you can plug them into your computer.
Yeah, Shure has.
If you're doing a Zoom type,
Shure has a USB mic too. And up until I just got this one for Christmas, this fancy one that my wife got me, it was like $400. But ever since I started my podcast years ago, I had this little $100 Blue Yeti mic. I mean, I just retired this thing just last month.
Right.
So that was it.
Nothing
eBay, fancy.
If you want any, right from because I have obviously the processor really makes us sound, at least makes me sound better on this end from processing the sound. You can go on eBay. There are so many people have bought mics or whatever, wanted to do this, wanted to start a podcast, wanted to do that, and then it didn't happen. Go on eBay. You will occasionally find a treasure on there that someone's underselling that they've used a few times and it's still in its box.
Yeah, I have this. You probably can't see. I have this little Vocaster 2.
Yep.
That's the only, that and this mic are what I just recently added this year for Christmas presents for myself. But prior to this year, everything I did was that Blue Yeti and just whatever Zoom had. My entire podcast that I had running for 3 years was all done, just recorded on Zoom with that Blue Yeti mic. There was no fancy nothing.
Right.
So there's really no excuses not to do it.
Yep.
But just make sure that it's, like I said, self-awareness to know that you're the kind of person that would do it and do it consistently. Otherwise it's not going to work for you.
This is because I just make me think. I don't know if you know Krista Mashore. She
yeah. I interviewed her on my podcast, and she had me on her podcast.
Yeah. So she wakes up in the morning and goes live on Instagram, and she's sitting there in her bathrobe with no makeup on, and she's putting her makeup on while she's talking. Mm-hmm. And there's another lady, she's not in real estate, but Jen Gottlieb, she's a keynote speaker. Yep. She does the same thing. And it's that realization that they are letting their guard down. They're not looking their best at the moment, or at least what you see in all these fancy photos or videos. They're sitting there literally in their bathrooms, putting their makeup on and talking to you in the morning, doing that little thing. Be real. And Sean said the same thing you said, Sean Carpenter. Said the same thing that you said. Be the same guy online that you are offline, because you might take that relationship from online to offline, meeting them in the grocery store, or you meet somebody offline and then they go to watch your videos and they're like, yeah, that's the guy I met.
Yeah. No, that's super important. And it's why, so if anyone wants to, find me on Instagram, it's easy. It's just my name, Rick A. Gonzalez. But my stories every day are done the same time, same way every day. It's right after I drop my son off at school, and it's during my drive home. So it's literally just me holding my phone as I'm doing my drive home, talking about whatever I've got going on that day.
You're not holding your phone while you're driving though, right?
Yeah, I am. I know. The safety police are going to come get me. I get asked all the time, what kind of a phone holder do you have? It's just my hand resting on my leg, and it just works for me.
So what do you
So I
like to cover
do
in that? What do you, when you do that? So you're prepping in your mind while you're dropping your kid off. All
no,
right, this is what I'm going
no
to talk
prep.
about. What's going through
No,
your mind?
no prep. It's very much like what my old Ricky G show used to be. It's just now it's stories.
Hmm.
It's literally like he gets out, I close the door, I wait until I get out of the parking lot, and as soon as I get on the main road,
Hmm.
I start recording, and it's just whatever pops into my head. Usually, it's something to do with what I have planned for that day. So I might, if I have a listing appointment, I might mention what neighborhood it's in. I might do an update on any new builds, any kind of local information. Hey, we're going to get a new traffic light over here, or, hey, there's a new business coming to town.
Right.
Just kind of, like little highlights of whatever is happening in business and personal life of mine. And if I don't have anything like that, sometimes I'll just go on a tangent and start talking about, I don't know, sometimes I get a little too deep even for myself and I have to stop. But, it's really just me just jabbering on. But to kind of our whole point of this is that people watch it almost religiously, which is a little creepy for me. I don't know how to process some of that stuff, but I've had buyers from New Jersey who ended up calling me to be their realtor, and they were like, every morning when we're getting ready for work, like we watch your stories on the TV so we know what's going on in Freeport.
Cool.
And I was like, I'm sorry, on the T. So you have me on the big screen in your bedroom while you're getting ready in the morning?
From
And
your
she's like, yeah,
lap while your phone's looking up at you.
yeah.
Is that?
And I'm like, what? It's just so weird. But the thing is just like every other habit we have, right? If you're used to watching a certain show in the morning, or you're used to having your coffee a certain way, if you're consistent and they get used to seeing you and they like it, and they just, just like we do with the Kardashians and all these other people, right? We feel like we know them because we see them every day.
Yep.
People start to feel like they know you. And so they tune in. Oh, let's see what Rick's doing today. And that it's free. It's Instagram. It's free.
How
And
long
it
do you
takes me,
keep? What kind of time do you keep that to? Do you kind of to like 2 or 3 minutes, or what do you do?
well, because I'm doing stories, I go as long as the little thing will let me go. Because stories it's not like it used to be before, where you could just record 15 minutes and it would chop it up on its own. Like now it just ends. So you'll see me looking down at the phone so that I don't run over. But yeah, as long as the thought lasts, and then if it's a longer thought, then I'll do more. So I'll shoot 5 to 10 stories on the trip home. I try to do the captions at the stoplights if I can. But yeah, again, you're not overly thought through. It's just raw, unfiltered Ricky G first thing in the morning. And I get other realtors, I get, the mayor, I get local business owners, following and tuning in and DMing me all the time, with questions and input.
So educate me a little bit on that, because I've never actually done a video on story, and I've transferred short things into stories, but actually to go live. Now, are you putting in, how do they know, or is it just because it's you? It's popping up on everybody that's on your friends list, basically, that hey, Ricky's going live.
Yeah. So stories on the top.
Mm-hmm.
The only people who see your stories are people who follow you.
Okay.
So it's only going to be people who follow me. And then obviously I mean, that's my wife as the first one on here, but let's say my wife watches it and then she shares it with a friend, you can get, I'm not going to say you get any kind of virality, but you can expand your network if you say something that someone's like, ooh, and they share it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's, what I should do is I should do a reel and then share it to the stories also. There's lots of tactics that I should do that I don't.
I did hear that one the other day, taking your reels and sharing them to your stories. Someone was saying that. I don't know where I heard that. It was just in the last couple of days. I just did a couple of them myself. Yeah.
Well, because the upside of reels is they last forever, like a YouTube video, right? Whereas stories are gone in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do, when I shoot the stories, I have this setting on where it saves the video to my phone too. So what I can do later is I can go back and I can make a reel out of my stories. I don't do that. I should, but I don't. Um, but that's probably what I should do. And then make like today's stories a reel, and where people can go back and watch it if they missed it today. But I'm not that organized. Right now, YouTube has all of my attention. I just got a new editor that I started working with. I'm waiting on my first video. And I'm really trying to get super consistent with YouTube this year. So that's kind of taken up all of my attention and focus. So maybe once the editor is on board and set up, maybe I'll start doing more real stuff. But right now, I just try to make myself consistent with at least a couple of things. And so it's going to be YouTube and stories for now.
And the bottom line, I think you'd agree with, just do it. You don't have to do it all. Just, if you could just do reels, do reels. If you could do just a 3-minute stream or a 15-minute stream to a business owner, another real estate agent, talking about real estate, start just being active and then, every week or something, you can add a new trick to the thing or whatever. Somebody's going to tell you a new thing. Hey, you can take your reels to stories. I just heard that this week. So that's what so I did it a couple times and see where that goes, and but you got to do it. Just got to do it.
And that's why I do my stories in the car coming home from school, because I needed to build it into my day where it would be that habit.
Right.
If you haven't read Atomic Habits, fantastic book. Everyone should read it multiple times. But so I just trained myself that when I drop my kid off, I'm going to pick up my phone and I'm going to start recording stories. It's an uninterrupted time of my day where there's, my wife's not here, the dog's aren't barking, there's nobody in the house. It's just me in the car. And, it's kind of like when you're in the shower, you have all those great ideas. Like when I'm alone in the car, it's like the brain is just free to, have that free thought time.
Yep.
And so it's, you don't have to risk your life driving. You could, if you have, 15 minutes and go to the park or go sit outside, whatever it is, you're comfortable, but build it into your day where you have time to do it. And that will help you with your consistency, or at least that's what's helped me with mine.
Yeah, no, I love that tip right there in the morning. Of course, how many times are we in the car line, right? If you're dropping your kids off, you're in the car line in front of the school.
And listen, that's great content, because all the other like car drop off people, they can relate. So that's great content.
And they're probably on their phone at that moment in time too. So they're going to go live. 100%.
Yeah.
Rick, I really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to meeting you on the 26th. And like I said, I'd love to be able to, reach out to you periodically and, have a little 30-minute conversation of something new that we learned on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, and share and bring everyone up. Rising tide raises all boats. So
there you go. That's it, man. Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. I had a good time, and definitely looking forward to seeing everybody on the 26th.
10-4.